Okay, welcome to the Saratoga Springs Planning Commission for meeting for Thursday, September 24th, 2020. I need to read a brief statement here before we begin. I, Troy Cunningham, Planning Commission Chair, hereby determine that conducting the Planning Commission meeting at an anchor location presents a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present at the anchor location. The World Health Organization, the President of the United States, the Governor of Utah, and the County Health Department have all recognized a global pandemic exists related to the new strain of coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2, COVID-19. Due to this state of emergency caused by the global pandemic, I find that conducting a meeting at an anchor location under the current state of public emergency constitutes a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present at the location. This written declaration expires 30 days from the date signed Troy Cunningham, Saratoga Springs Planning Commission Chair, dated September 17th, 2020. Commissioner Reed Ryan is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So I'll go ahead and turn the time over to him for that.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of
America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so for roll call, it looks like, who all do we have on the line here? Looks like we have Ken, Commissioner Kilgore, Commissioner Anderson, Commissioner Wagstaff, I think.
Yep.
And Commissioner Ryan. Commissioner Anderson, did I miss anyone? That's all I can seem to see. Looks like we're missing a couple. We have a quorum, so we'll go ahead and proceed with our first item, business item. The site plan for Kentucky KFC located at 1378 North Exchange Drive. Alberto Quinones as the applicant, and this will be presented by our planner, Gina, whose last name I can't pronounce, sorry.
That's okay, it's Grand Prix. Kind of like the car, but
Grand Prix, yes.
Yeah.
So we'll go ahead and turn the time over to you for the presentation, Gina.
Sounds good. So we have here the KFC site plan. As you may remember, this was on the Planning Commission agenda for May. The applicant had asked to hold off because of the pandemic. And so they did ask for it to come back. They're ready to proceed. So this is where we're at. The site is located across the street from Tractor Supply on the corner of Crossroads and Exchange Drive. You can see right here, KFC lot 301. It is the Saratoga Springs commercial subdivision is what it is. So it is zoned regional commercial, as well as the general plan is designated as regional commercial. 0.8 acres on the lot. It is proposed use of restaurant drive-through. Here is the site plan. Troy, I do apologize. My staff report on the parking did show 22. That was not updated. So the original red lines showed 22 parking stalls. That they updated that. They do have 26 regular stalls, 2 handicap stalls, and then 4 drive-through spots that they can use, including parking. As you can see, they obviously have more parking available in the drive-through, but the parking only allows to use towards their parking limit. Other than that, we have their landscaping. They meet all the requirements for landscaping. Their lighting, they meet all of that. They have provided the photometric, so it all stays within the light stays within their lot. This is the exterior elevations. You've got your west, or your, let's see, your west. Here is the west elevation down on the bottom. The east is on the top. Then you have your front and your back. You have your front here on the left and then your rear on the right. This is a color scheme that all fits within the code. And with that, this is what planning staff recommends approval for the site plan for KFC. Any questions?
Does the applicant have anything he would like to add? Or she?
Can you hear me? This is Alberto Quiñones.
Yes, I can hear
great.
you.
Fantastic. Not a lot. We're here mostly to answer any questions you have. I'll say that we have worked closely with Gina and the team to address the plan check comments. So, including landscaping, lighting, which fits in with the area, etc. So if you have any questions for us, we'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, so as a tradition, I usually start with Commissioner Kilgore, so I'm going to allow Commissioner Kilgore to start us off. Hey, Ken, Commissioner, we can't hear you. Still can't hear you. David Johnson, is there anything you can do to help?
No, I'm looking at it. I think he's
Okay.
having technical difficulties, so maybe you can circle around to him.
Okay. We'll go ahead and we'll get to Ken here in a few minutes. Commissioner Anderson, alphabetical. Do you have anything you would like to add or ask?
Not right now.
Okay. The next up would be Commissioner Ryan. Do you have any questions you'd like to ask?
I don't have any questions. I thought it was actually pretty straightforward. I appreciate all the updates on the CAN complies and highlighting the complies. I thought that was helpful as well to see the work that had been progressed on the application itself. So appreciate that. I don't have any questions.
Commissioner Wagstaff.
I don't have any specific questions either on it.
All right, Ken, can you hear us?
Perhaps Ken, if Ken's having troubles,
You can type in his questions, I guess.
Yeah, the Q&A on the bottom or the chat on the bottom, I guess.
yeah, that's what I was going to recommend. And then just for public record,
I can read it out.
Yeah, if you can read it out, his comments there, if he types into the chat. Otherwise, I would recommend just moving forward.
Okay, this is from Ken, Commissioner Kilgore. Since this is an administrative decision, does the applicant agree to abide by the conditions in the city staff report?
Oh, definitely.
Okay. He's got one more, it looks like.
Okay.
Are the green complies updates to the CAN complies? This is that again from Commissioner Kilgore.
Yes, everything that has, everything is checked out. So all of the highlighted green or highlighted yellow has all been brought to date.
Okay. Do you have any more questions, Ken? Commissioner Kilgore? I think he does. Thank you to the applicant for such a clean application.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have a couple things that I wanted to go over. Firstly, on the garbage surround,
Sure.
in the application, it doesn't list what the materials are going to be around the garbage surround. Our code requires that it match the building. And in the description, all I could read, when I read it, all I could find was the dimensions and stuff for the cement pad.
Got it. So the garbage surround is a concrete block. You know, often what we'll do is we'll paint that if it's allowed by the city. If not, we can finish it with a material.
Yeah, it needs to match the stuff, the materials on the building.
Okay.
I
So
apologize about that, Troy. That
Yes.
is, I believe, in the construction drawings.
Okay, it's just not in what we were
Right.
presented. Okay, now I'm going to get technical. Sorry.
Okay.
In our code, and it's section 1914,
Okay.
which is the site plan review, specifically under 1914.5 for the application, things that are required in the application.
Okay.
One of the items that's required, if you go under 3 and then it's O, it specifically says under item O, when I scroll down to it here, signage plan. An overall signage plan shall be approved during the site plan approval process. All information to be provided for the sign approval shall be submitted concurrent with the site plan application materials consistent with the requirements in section 1918. 1918, that section goes over what the signs need to have.
Sure.
So what I'm looking at here, I don't have a site plan, or I mean,
Mhm.
excuse me, I don't have a sign plan. So I can't
Correct.
really look at it. And we kind of hit on this in our last meeting that we need to, in order, we're the last sign off on this. And I need
Okay.
to be able to review these materials for me to give the yes vote, as this is an administrative decision. So this is one of the items I'm going to have a real hard time saying yes to. Now, if I noticed in the checklist that sign plans not even listed in the checklist, if that's
Yeah.
the case, then what we
Sure.
need to do as a city is we need to remove this from the code. Otherwise, I need to see a signage plan before I can say yes.
So Troy, can I
Yes.
answer to this?
Uh-huh.
Usually what we have done in my past site plan reviews has been that the site plan requires a whole separate permit. And I understand where you're coming from previous discussions with conditions. And so, I mean, our sign permit is pretty extensive. And I failed to put that in as a condition, that the sign has to meet the sign permitting, because there's a whole process that goes through. And so I apologize about that's usually the way that I've done the last several site plans, is that the signs are done through a separate permitting process.
Yeah, and Commissioner, Chair, if I could just pipe in here too. Yeah, you know, obviously when we get a site plan in, you know, we'd like to see the sign package as well. You know, that obviously helps when you're looking at a site plan. All site plans you may not be able to get, though. You could have a site plan come in with, you know, a multi-tenant building, and they're just going to be, you know, 10 finished spaces where the user's not known yet. So you'll get times where you're not even going to see know what the sign package is going to be. Now, true with KFC, they probably already have that down, but the signs themselves are approved by staff, not by the Planning Commission. It does help your review of the site plan, though, to see that sign package. But the council's delegated all sign approvals to staff. So in my opinion, I don't think not having the sign package should be a holdup on your part.
And that's probably something that we do need to, if it is in our site plan review, we probably need to address that and change that in the code.
Right, I agree. And the code needs to be changed if we're going to do that. But in a multiple tenant, we would at least see that they're going to have a monument sign or something out in front of the building. We'd have the dimensions, even though we don't know what's going to be put in the slots. And I have seen that in applications prior to this.
Right, so the commercial lots that you've recently passed off on, they didn't have any such thing. So the ones just adjacent to KFC here to the east. That site plan didn't, I believe that was the same case as this. And that's why I didn't include the sign
Okay.
package with this. It was because I hadn't with that one either. So yeah, and I get where you're coming from, but I think where Dave is saying, I think that's where we probably need to address the code and right now.
May I add something just to?
Go ahead, Alberto. Yes.
Thank you. Alberto again from VMI. If I, this might put you a little bit at ease. We definitely did review the code, the municipal code for sign requirements, and we worked pretty hard to make sure that we, at least for the building, we agreed we haven't included a lot of, or really much information about the monument sign, but at least the signs on the building, we're aware of where they can go, what the heights have to be, what the square footages are, that type of thing. We definitely reviewed and made sure that we complied with the municipal code with regard to those items. So I hope that helps a little bit at least.
Yes.
And it appears we have a chart, actually a signage chart that appears on drawing DD 4.0 that shows what our signage is, and it shows what the percentages are. And I know that Saratoga Springs is very specific about the primary elevation, and then the secondary elevation has to be 50% of the first sign, etc. So we're pretty confident that we're going to be okay, at least for that aspect of it, if that helps.
Okay. I will go ahead and turn this over to the Planning Commission for a motion.
Could I ask a quick question? Or
Yes,
just
Commissioner Anderson, go ahead.
This is just a comment. Whether we leave that sign piece in the code or not for site plan approval, I still think if in future instances, if a sign plan is available for the site plan presentation, that it be brought in at that phase. I don't know.
Yeah, we can do that. I mean,
But I get the dynamics of multiple tenants and not knowing who's going to be filling which spaces. So I don't want to strike it from the process altogether if it's available and could be brought forward with the site plan at the same time. Anyway, that's my own comment. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Commissioner Anderson. Do we have any other comments?
I just want to say this, Commissioner Ryan, I'll make a motion here in just a moment, but wonderful catch, Chair Cunningham. I appreciate that. That's good education, and I appreciate the discussion around that. So thank you. That said,
Commissioner Kilgore, did you have something you wanted to say? Do you want to type it out? We still can't hear you. Just checking. Okay, it looks like Commissioner Kilgore was just checking his mic. Okay. So I'll go ahead and open it up for a motion. And for Commissioner Kilgore, I'll look to see if he gives me a thumbs up or a thumbs down.
so this Commissioner Ryan, I move to approve the proposed site plan of the Saratoga Springs Commercial Plat C, Lot 301, KFC Restaurant at 1378 North Exchange Drive, in the RC zone with findings and conditions as presented in the staff report on September 24th, 2020.
A motion from Commissioner Ryan. Do I have a second?
Anderson, second.
Do we have a question on the motion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Aye. Have a thumbs up from Commissioner Kilgore. All opposed, say nay. Looks like it's a unanimous. So we'll go ahead and congratulations on that to Kentucky Fried Chicken and Alberto and the team.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll go ahead and move on to the next item here, which I believe is approval of the minutes. Does anyone have any additions to the minutes that they need to make, or any comments about the minutes? Okay, it doesn't look like it. So I'll go ahead and entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes.
Commissioner Ryan, I motion to approve the minutes dated Thursday, August 27th, 2020, as presented this evening.
Motion for Commissioner Ryan. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second for
Wagstaff.
Commissioner Wagstaff. Okay, all in favor of the motion to approve the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Kilgore is an aye. So I believe that's unanimous. Item on the agenda is a training, Open Public Meetings Act training, and that's going to be presented to us by one of our city attorneys, Marion Barker. So I'll go ahead and turn the time over to Marion.
Hi, thank you for having me. Let me just turn this up. I'm going to try and share my screen. Is everybody seeing that?
Yes.
Okay, so I know you're required to do this. I know this is not your most favorite meeting to have, but we're gonna try and get through it quickly. I think most of you have probably been through this training several times. If not, if this is your first time, then it's not that exciting. Okay, so let's just jump into this. And there we go. Okay, so Open Public Meetings Act, it was put together by the state. Basically, the legislature declared that any political subdivision must take their actions openly and conduct their deliberations openly. The courts have interpreted that to be pretty broad. And so we need to make sure if there's a question that we remember that it's a broad definition. So what does that mean to take actions openly and to conduct deliberations openly? Basically, it's what you've been doing tonight, and that's why we have to have Zoom calls and can't do this in a back room. The public has a right to know what is going on in the city. So who is subject to this law? Basically, it is, well, Planning Commission, City Council, any administrative, advisory, executive, or legislative body that can spend, distribute, or is supported by tax money. In order to have a meeting, you have to have at least 2 people on a board. Okay, so for example, City Council and Planning Commission. Surprisingly, the Library Board also meets the definitions of a committee, and that's because they do work with funds. So a meeting, what do you have to have a meeting? You have to convene as a public body. There has to be a quorum present, which means more than half of your members have to be there. This does include workshops and executive sessions. So sometimes councils and commissions can think if it's just a workshop that it doesn't need to be open and to the public, but it does. So these meetings also, if you're just meeting for fun, for an activity that wouldn't count, you do have to be meeting to discuss public action and acting on it. So what does it not mean? A chance meeting, a social meeting. If you have a Christmas party and you're all there, that doesn't count. If you just happen to meet at the grocery store, that doesn't count. If you are meeting and you're not appropriating public funds, that would also not count. Okay, so this is not relatively new. Councils and commissions have been using electronic meetings for a while now, but with the pandemic, it's obviously become more used. So we can do our open public meetings by phone, computer, or other electronic means. The notice requirements still apply. We still have to meet the state requirements for the number of days notice. And we have to make sure that if we are going to do it electronically, that the public has a way to attend or participate. And we do have to adopt this into existing rules. So the state allows it, but if the city hasn't adopted it, then they can't actually do electronic meetings. Okay, so text messaging and emailing. I'm not sure how often this gets brought up, but you may not transmit electronic messages during a meeting. Otherwise, it's an unauthorized public meeting. So that includes sending a text to one of your colleagues on the commission, or Facebooking them, or writing stuff on Facebook, or IMing, any sort of electronic or social media conversation during a public meeting is a violation of this. So
can I ask
go
a question?
ahead.
I just
Yes.
sent David Johnson a private message right now saying I'm having bandwidth problems, so I turned my video off. Is that
So
say something? At least I'm announcing it as public record now.
So public record, yes.
Okay.
So the important thing on this is that really any communication that you have during this meeting needs to be in the public.
Okay.
So what happens if you violate that? It happens all the time between city council members and planning commission members. And there are situations where, and this has happened, the public will grandma all of the text messages between council members or planning commission members or emails. So you definitely don't want to be caught saying something embarrassing that might come up later.
Okay.
What about the chat function?
So the chat in Zoom, I think, works because it's all part of the public meeting. And it's as the chair usually reads in the comments. So that I think that meets our definition. It's just if somebody, say your neighbor couldn't get on it and they wanted to text you a question, that would be in violation of the open public meeting. So that would, or if you wanted to, you'd have to read that message in.
So Marin, if I can just add, this is David. That's why I recommended to the chair that he read Commissioner Kilgore your comments in relation to the items that were presented.
Absolutely. That was a really good recommendation. And I believe every time we've had a Zoom, if there's a chat, it's been read in. Anything else before we move on? Because this is kind of a nuance. I don't see any, so I'll just move on. So closed meetings, you can have closed meetings. It's very narrow why you can close a meeting, and they're up on the screen, but basically it has to fall within one of these categories to be closed. In order to close a meeting, actually this is property sales. You can discuss the sale of real property. And basically the reason you would want to do that in a closed meeting is maybe you haven't decided if you're selling it or not, how much you're going to offer. All of that are things that until it actually goes up for sale, you can discuss that privately in a closed meeting. Okay, so are there any meetings that must be closed? Not for local government. So we have the option to have closed meetings if they meet those very limited situations, but we do not have any mandatory closed meetings. So to close a meeting, you have to meet the basic meeting requirements first. You must have to have a quorum. If somebody gets sick in the middle of your meeting or a couple people and all of a sudden you don't have a quorum, you probably can't continue your meeting in the first place, but you definitely cannot go into a closed meeting. So you do need 2/3 of the members present to vote. You must actually make a motion and vote to go into a closed meeting. And then you either leave the room, or in this situation, you would leave the Zoom meeting. You must take a vote, and the vote must be by roll call. Okay, during a closed meeting, it's very important to stay on topic. You really cannot stray off the topic. You can't vote on anything. You can't approve an ordinance, resolution, rule, regulation, contract, and you definitely cannot appoint anybody to any other committee or group. You can't interview a person to fill an elected position, and you certainly cannot take final action. That goes back to the whole purpose of the open meetings, is all your deliberations and voting have to be open. So notice requirements for any meeting. You have to notice the date, time, and place at least 24 hours. And the agenda that you post, it has to be posted and noticed in several places. And typically the recorder, and I think Nicolette and David, you guys take care of this for the Planning Commission. You do a great job. There are some exceptions for emergency meetings, which obviously have happened in the last year. But so what is an emergency? Clearly the pandemic was an emergency in a lot of situations. Just because we have an earthquake or a pandemic doesn't mean that the meeting has to be an emergency. If you have time to provide notice, and then you need to. If you can't, if it's really not practical, and it's really unforeseen, then definitely you can have emergency meetings. But a majority of the members have to be there. So during a meeting, you keep minutes, and the minutes must include date, time, and place of meeting, name of all the members present. That's typically why you do a roll call, just to say who's there and who's not. And that goes on the minutes. It has to disclose all of the matters that we're going to be discussing and deciding. And typically you do want to keep a record of all the names and possibly addresses or phone numbers of people who have made comments. And that's really just to keep in touch with them. And then individual votes on the matter. Written minutes are the official record, even though we do have audio and sometimes video, written minutes are official. Well, so how do you meet these minute requirements? And it's actually quite simple. You can do it, you can have a video and you have an audio, and when it's done, you can make that available online. And that helps something get out quickly, but then you do still need to have written minutes. And the audio has to be made available within 3 days. And written minutes, you have 30 days to get those approved and made available. And then also posted. So we kind of talked about this, what happens if somebody violates the Open Public Meetings Act, and it does happen. There are mistakes, and you're not gonna go to jail for it typically. Most of the time, it really concerns people who are knowingly or intentionally trying to violate the Open Public Meetings Act. So if for some reason we didn't get the notice out correctly for a meeting and there was a vote that took place on anything, anybody can challenge that vote and say that it's not valid because the meeting was not valid. And that has happened. It doesn't happen every day, but it does happen every year in different jurisdictions. So sometimes the court can just void the decision that was made. And you just put it back on the agenda and you have to go through it again. So common violations are, well, not doing proper notice, closing meetings without the members of the body voting. That is very normal. That's typically why there's an attorney or somebody there saying, nope, close the meeting. Discussing things in closed meetings that shouldn't be discussed. That's also why if you have a closed meeting, you normally have your city attorney in there with you to make sure that you stay on topic. Or taking official or final action, so voting in a closed meeting. And who can enforce OPMA is the courts, the attorney general, the county attorney, and frankly, any private citizen that feels that their rights have been denied, they can file an action. And that does happen quite often. And then really you have 90 days for most actions, and after 90 days, you're typically safe, and 30 days if it involves bonds, notes, or debt. So if something happens, you have to hold your breath for 90 days. Or you can, what I would suggest is realize that it was an improper meeting and notice it for a proper meeting and have the vote again. So that is it. Tried to keep it painless and short, but are there any other questions?
Maren, can you go back to slide 19? I had a question on the voting, and when we take a vote, we had discussed this. I serve on a charter or the board for a charter school, and we had just gone through all this as well. Should we be doing like roll call votes where each person's name is called and then a vote recorded? I think it was slide 19.
Oh, individual votes on each matter.
Yeah.
Typically that would be the best. Yeah.
Is that just the case for electronic meetings, or is that for all meetings?
All meetings.
Okay.
I think it's over time, it's gotten to the point where it's just like all in favor. But there really does need to be audio and written of each member voting.
And Mayor, and I would add, this is David, that it's even more crucial in virtual meetings where you may not know who's speaking if all are saying aye at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Commissioner Cunningham, I just, I guess any
David, what was that?
item you take a vote on every motion.
We can do that.
I'm sorry, it cut out. I missed the question.
I think he was saying that every time we do a motion, go through the roll and ask how they want to vote, rather than saying all in favor, say aye.
Yes, so there should, a proper motion would say, do the motion to pass whatever ordinance number, or in your situation, it would be a site plan, and then do roll call vote. And then it's a yes or no from each person.
Yes, I believe we can make that change.
Yeah, it'll add maybe 15 seconds to a motion, not a big deal.
I forgot to say with a second, a motion with a second, and then roll call vote.
Okay. Did anyone have any other questions for Marion?
Does the city have an electronic meeting policy in place?
We do. Some cities didn't have one at the start of the pandemic, and so they had to rush to get something passed, but yes, we have one, and the state has provided more guidance on it as well. So we're good to go.
My question, have you seen, are there any, I don't know, consistent violations of how we handle things with our planning commission? Have you noticed anything, or are we pretty good, mostly pretty good, or what do you think?
think you guys are mostly really great. It's just the roll call vote is probably the biggest change. And you don't really have closed sessions. I haven't been a part of one. Noticing is good. I think just make sure you're not texting each other or emailing during the meetings. If you have something to say to each other, just say it out in the public.
With our more seasoned commissioners like Chair Cunningham and Commissioner Kilgore, have you all ever had to go into a closed session in your years of service?
Yes, we have. I think 3, if memory serves me correctly. Commissioner Kilgore may have had more because he's been on the commission longer than me.
No, I was going to say 2, and maybe it was 3. And I think at least 2 of them were about the same topic.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know if I don't remember if there were consecutive meetings, but it was on the same topic. And it was something that it was a city manager, I think, at least for those 2 meetings that I remember, that he requested the meeting. And I do believe he did the roll call and all that as well, to close the meeting and such. So
I think, yeah.
It was pretty serious. I mean, it was a serious, not the topic, but how we did it. We tried to follow the rules, and our attorney was, at the time he was there as well, made sure that it happened correctly. And we really did stick on topic. And then we opened it as soon as it was finished, or closed the closed meeting as soon as our topic was spent.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is important to note also. Thank you for bringing that up. When you do go into a closed meeting, when your business is finished, you actually have to make a motion to close your closed meeting, have a second and vote on it. And then you can actually reconvene into your normal meeting. And then you have to have a vote to reconvene. So that was a good point. It's a good sign if you haven't had a ton of closed meetings. Some cities tend to abuse closed meetings and they have them all the time. And that just leads to a distrust of the residents. They start not trusting the council or the commission. And so the fact that you've had so few speaks really highly of your group. Anything else?
Yeah, I was going to ask, do we have anything else, or is it okay if we move on to the next item?
I will stop sharing.
Thank you. Okay, so
Thank you so
commission
much.
comment. Yes, thank you for, and I don't think that was boring at all. I thought you kept it moving along and kept my interest. Okay, the next is commission comments. I actually have a comment. Is anyone else besides me going to the Utah League of Cities and Towns conference? I shouldn't say going, attending online.
I'm not. When is that?
It's going right now.
Oh.
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I just wondered if
They've combined it also with the we have our annual fall conference for Utah APA, American Planning Association. They've combined those 2 this year.
So are you going to any of the meetings or attending, David?
I am not at the moment. No, not this time.
Okay. I wanted to thank whoever opened it up for us to attend, and I jumped at it because I really wanted to go. And it's been some really interesting topics. They've had some good speakers in some of the general sessions. It's been helpful to me, so I'm glad that I was able to go. They brought up some stuff about changing parking and having it more of an individual city rather than using standard stuff that was they developed in the 70s and 80s. Although I think in some places we have more parking than we need, but in other areas I think we don't have enough. We don't have adequate parking. One of the suggestions they gave was that a city do an inventory and then develop their code based on that. But one of the problems I think we face as a city for that is I don't know if we have enough history of parking to do that. So anyway, all right. So if no one, does anyone else have any, want to make any commission comments? If not, we'll move on to director's report.
Just, one item to bring up. I spoke with the chair here before everyone joined the meeting. The city council has elected as of right now to go back to in-person meetings starting in October. That doesn't necessarily mean the planning commission has to. That'll be up to the chairman to decide. We did discuss it beforehand, before the meeting came online. And it was my opinion, and the chair has the right to make his decision. It was my opinion to, if the council still goes through with that, based on what's happened this week with Provo and Orem and whatnot, to probably see how it works for the council. We do have one more person. We have 7 on the planning commission, where the council is the 5 plus the mayor, so the 6. I think it'd just be wise to take a look and see how that functions, and is it going to work. And things I see coming down the line on the planning commission probably wouldn't be as necessary to meet in person. And so that's just my recommendation.
Hey, Dave, one clarification. The council didn't vote to return. The resolution simply to host meetings online ends in September. So the mayor and council could extend that. But they didn't vote to return. Just the resolution to do online through September ends. And so
Okay.
there's potential that they could extend that, but right now they haven't made that decision to do that.
And just to talk to the planning commission briefly too, I think the agendas have become a little lighter. One, due to COVID, obviously. We've seen a little drop in applications as far as numbers go. I want to say last year we had 160 some applications. Right now we're probably sitting in the neighborhood of 135. I suspect we'll probably top out, high 140s, maybe low 150s by the end of the year. But also, if you recall, a couple years ago, the council made changes to the approval process, which they delegated additional items to staff. And so, for instance, yesterday and today, I've been reviewing the DI Desert Industries building and the Bishop Storehouse. That's all going to be approved by staff. It'll be a site plan, but you won't see it. You saw the basic site plan when the village plan and community plan came through to you. And so in a sense, you did already give a recommendation on that. But there's things now that, we're still, doing a lot of subdivision plats as far as Goes and Wander and Wildflower, North Shore. Those are still going gangbusters. And most of those are still all at a staff level now, unless something is not in conformance with the neighborhood plan or the village plan, then it will come back through you. So we're still doing a lot of work, just things that have dropped off just because the approval process has changed.
Well, and for those, the reason staff's doing that is because they have village plans in place with a master developer agreement for those zones, those areas.
Right, that too, and typically in a village plan, they'll show a lotting plan, that says this is what the subdivision of the future is going to look like. If that changes, then it would have to come back to you. But if it meets what's in the lotting plan, great, then it's approved by staff.
Okay. The next thing we have on the agenda is motion to go into closed session if we needed to do that. Do we?
Not for my end, no.
Okay, so do I need to make any comments about whether or not we return? I think I'm going to go with your recommendation. Let's see what happens with the city council before we decide to do anything. The current declaration we have runs until October 17th. So.
Okay. And you and I can talk offline if you like to.
Oh, okay.
And if you're not going to do it, I'd like to recognize Commissioner Barton has joined us in time to end the meeting.
I'm so sorry.
You're okay.
I sprained
You're
my
okay.
ankle. It's a long story. No one cares about it. But anyway, it went way longer than it was supposed to. I apologize. I'm so sorry, Troy.
That's okay. We'll forgive you.
Thank you. I'm so sorry.
No problem.
Hey, Troy, she needs to say the Pledge of Allegiance next time since she was.
Okay.
I will do that for you.
Writing
Absolutely.
a note. I'm writing a note. Okay. Right then, I think we'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting now and end the recording.
Sad.
Well, yeah.
Oh, I'm good to end the meeting, the recording now.
Yes, we're adjourned until our next meeting in October.
Thank you.